I had been searching for a vintage camera to add to my collection, and Craigslist just seemed like the perfect place to find one. I came across an ad posted by someone named Mark, who claimed to have the exact camera I was looking for. We exchanged a few messages, and Mark seemed friendly and knowledgeable about photography. He asked if we could meet at a coffee shop not too far from my home. As I walked in, I saw Mark sitting at a corner table, and he waved me over with a smile. Sure enough, he had the camera that I wanted, and it looked like it was in pristine condition. We chatted briefly about our shared passion for photography, and I was convinced that this was going to be a successful transaction. However, as I examined the camera, I noticed something unusual when I opened the back to check the film compartment. Inside, there was an old roll of film, seemingly forgotten. Mark must have noticed my curiosity and casually mentioned that he must have forgotten to take it out and insisted that I could have it. At the time, I didn't really think much of it since film rolls can be quite expensive. So I decided to take the roll of film along with the camera, thinking it might contain some interesting shots from the past. Later that day, I took it to a local photo lab to get it developed. When the technician handed me the developed photos, my blood ran cold. The images were chilling. They showed my house from various angles, taken from a distance and at different times of day. Some photos had timestamps indicating that they had been taken over the past few months. In some of the pictures, a shadowy figure could be seen lurking in the background, watching my home. Fear and panic washed over me. I rushed home and immediately called the police, explaining the situation and showing them the photos. They took the matter seriously and began an investigation. Through some diligent detective work, they managed to identify the individual responsible. It was Mark, the Craigslist seller. It turned out that Mark had been stalking me for months, using the camera sale as a ruse to get closer to my home. He had even gone as far as to install hidden cameras in my neighborhood to monitor my movements. The police arrested Mark, and he was charged with stalking, trespassing, and invasion of privacy. I shudder at the thought to think what could have happened if I hadn't discovered those eerie photos. It was a chilling reminder of the dangers that can lurk behind seemingly harmless online transactions. The experience left me shaken, but I was grateful that I had taken that roll of film home and acted swiftly to protect myself from a real-life horror story. A few years ago, I was on the hunt for a new apartment. Like many others, I turned to Craigslist to find listings that suited my budget. After weeks of searching, I stumbled upon an ad for an unbelievably affordable apartment in an old historic building. The description was enticing, and the picture showed a spacious, well maintained unit. I reached out to the poster, a man named John, and he responded promptly. He claimed to be a landlord and explained that the apartment was so cheap because he was so eager to find a responsible tenant. We scheduled a viewing for the following evening. When I arrived at the address, it became apparent that the building was much older than the photos had suggested. Its faded grandeur had a certain eerie charm. John met me at the entrance, and although he was polite, something about his demeanor seemed off. He led me up a creaking staircase to the apartment, which was dimly lit and gave off an unsettling vibe. I tried to ignore my instincts and focus on the apartment itself, but that proved difficult. As we moved through the rooms, John started asking personal questions that made me increasingly uncomfortable. He inquired about my work schedule, my social life, and even my family. Red flags were going off in my mind, and I began to make excuses to leave. John seemed visibly upset, and that's when things took a truly sinister turn. His demeanor shifted abruptly, and he locked the apartment door, blocking my escape. Panic coursed through me as he revealed a hidden room behind a bookshelf filled with restraints and disturbing paraphernalia. I knew I had to act fast. Summoning all my courage, I lunged at him, knocking him aside and sprinting for the door. I could hear his anger and heavy footsteps behind me, but my adrenaline fueled my escape. I reached the safety of the street and called the police. They arrived at the building and apprehended John, discovering a horrifying truth. He had a history of luring unsuspecting victims through Craigslist, using the promise of cheap apartments as bait to trap them. To this day, I wonder what would have happened had I stayed just a moment later, or had he trapped me inside his home. One night, a couple months ago, I was scrolling through an online marketplace searching for a used car. I came across an ad that seemed too good to be true. It was a luxurious sports car, practically new, listed at a fraction of its market value. The seller claimed it was a limited time offer due to an urgent need for cash. I've had my suspicions, but I didn't want to risk missing on a good opportunity, so I contacted the seller. A person by the name of Alex responded. They were friendly and eager to make this sale. We agreed to meet in a dimly lit parking lot, adding an eerie atmosphere to the whole exchange. However, it wasn't that far from home, so I didn't think nothing of it. When I arrived, I saw the car, and it was gleaming in the moonlight. It looked amazing and immaculate. Alex, a tall figure with a hood obscuring their face, handed me the keys and urged me to take it for a test drive. Looking back now, this was beyond creepy and a red flag, and I did hesitate, but the car was exactly what I wanted. So I got in. When I turned on the car, the engine roared to life, and I sped down the empty road, feeling an exhilaration I'd never experienced before. The whole ordeal was weird. Alex just stood there and allowed me to get into the car. He wasn't worried about me taking it, and if I had the courage, I would have easily just drove off without even paying him. But obviously, I'm no criminal. But when I glanced at the rearview mirror, Alex, standing by the side of the road, was watching me with an unsettling grin. I decided to return the car, and as I pulled back into the parking lot, he was gone. I parked the car and tried to contact them, but their phone was disconnected. I was worried, so I decided to leave and report this strange encounter to the police. As I opened the car door, I noticed a foul odor, like something had died inside the vehicle. I cautiously checked the trunk, and to my horror, I found a human hand sticking out from beneath the tarp. Panic set in, and I stumbled out of the car, only to see Alex's face on a nearby security camera, leering at me. I called the police immediately, and when they arrived, they uncovered a horrifying truth. The car I had test driven was stolen, and the false advertisement was a lure to trap unsuspecting victims. Alex was a wanted criminal, responsible for several disappearances in the area. My heart raced as I realized how narrowly I had escaped a gruesome fate. From that day on, I have been cautious about online advertisements, always weary of things that seem too good to be true. I stumbled upon an intriguing ad on Craigslist one evening. It was titled The Perfect Antique Mirror, a window to the past. As an antique enthusiast, I couldn't resist clicking on it. The ad was accompanied by a photo of an ornate Victorian-era mirror with an intricate wooden frame and an almost mystical aura about it. The description was equally enchanting. The seller, who went by the mysterious pseudonym Evelyn, claimed that the mirror was more than just a beautiful piece of decor. It had a hauntingly captivating secret. According to the ad, gazing into the mirror allowed you to glimpse scenes from the past as if you were a silent observer of history itself. Intrigued and skeptical in equal measure, I reached out to Evelyn to inquire about the mirror's authenticity. She responded promptly, claiming that the mirror had belonged to her great-grandmother a woman known for her psychic abilities. Legend had it that the mirror had been used in seances and rituals, unlocking glimpses of forgotten moments and spirits from the past. Despite my reservations, I arranged to meet Evelyn in a dimly lit coffee shop. She was a strange woman with an air of mystique about her. Her story was persuasive, and I couldn't resist the temptation any longer. I bought the mirror, entranced by the idea of peering into history itself. Once I had the mirror in my possession, I couldn't help but test its alleged powers. It wasn't until one late night, alone in my living room, I stared into its depths. At first, I saw nothing but my own reflection. But then, as minutes passed, the mirror seemed to ripple, and the room around me began to shift. I found myself standing in an old candlelit room. The air was heavy with tension, and a group of people in 19th century attire huddled around a table covered in velvet. It seemed as though they were conducting a seance, and I was the invisible observer of their ghostly gathering. The experience was surreal as I watched the spirits of the past communicate with the living. Days turned into weeks, and my obsession with the mirror grew. I delved deeper into its secrets, witnessing scenes from history, both beautiful and horrifying. I saw lovers' reunions, battlefield horrors, and moments of profound human connection. It was as if I had access to a portal through time. But with each glimpse into the past, I felt a piece of myself slipping away. My world became increasingly disconnected from reality. I neglected my job, my friends, and my own well being. The mirror was a captivating but perilous addiction, and I couldn't tear myself away from it. One evening, I stared into the mirror once again, and I saw something that chilled me to my core. It was my own reflection, but this time it was different. Hollow eyes and a twisted smile. I realized with horror that the mirror had taken more from me than I had ever could have imagined. Till this day, I'm convinced that it had stole my soul, leaving behind an empty husk of a person. The dark twist of this Craigslist ad was revealed in that haunting moment, as I became trapped within the mirror, forever bound to its sinister enchantment. My warning to anyone who stumbles upon such an ad: be careful with what you wish for some treasures come with a price too high to pay.